Hi, everyone, and welcome to The X, a podcast from inside Silicon Valley about how experience shapes everything from products to businesses to entire industries. I'm Brian McLean, and I'm here with Demetrius Madrigal. We have a couple interesting topics to talk about this week. We're going to talk about Instagram and their NFTs. We're going to talk about daylight savings time, and then Elden Ring. So, Dee, how are you? Good morning.
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. I'm interested in some of these topics to cover. I think the Instagram one is really kind of tipping their hand for what they're thinking for the future.
Yeah, so here's what basically happened. So Meta announced at South by Southwest that NFTs are coming to Instagram, but very few details were actually provided. But when you look
Hmm.
underneath the hood and the couple announcements that have happened in the last couple of weeks, you get an idea of where they're heading. So Mark Zuckerberg did say that users will be able to show off their NFTs and also mint within the environment. That one,
Hmm.
very interesting to me. We could talk about that in a minute. Um, but the company has also been piloting their own crypto wallet called Novi, and it's using the Pax dollar, which is a stable coin. And my guess is they're probably working on a master plan to kind of stitch all this stuff together over the next couple of years.
Hmm.
They ran into some issues with trying to create their own cryptocurrency. Regulators didn't want that to happen because of the size of their environment. Um, but if you think about it, with Instagram bringing in NFTs and then them having a crypto wallet, I could see them eventually releasing a coin itself, and basically creating their own marketplace and their own economy within the 2 billion people that are connected within the Meta platform. Also, just as a side note, if everyone can hear a little bit of hammering or banging in the background, that's only because we're having a little bit of construction done. So I apologize for that. So, Dee, what do you think about this announcement about the NFTs coming to Instagram and potentially also allowing you to mint within the environment?
Well, I think that it kind of shows part of their overall plan. Like they're really kind of investing in their metaverse product. So an NFT product within that makes sense. You know, you have NFT stuff to go with your metaverse avatars and whatnot, and then in order for any NFT implementation that makes sense right now is cross-platform. So you imagine that for them, at a minimum, that means cross-platform into Instagram. But from what they're saying, that they would have like NFT minting built into the platform, into the environment, that could mean minting within the metaverse product, or that could be minting within Instagram. So I can imagine something where within the Instagram kind of post creation process, you take your photo and you add your filters and maybe add some effects or overlays, and then you can choose to mint that as an NFT if you want to.
Yeah, what's really interesting to me is that how lucky they got really with the kind of shifting of the world because Instagram seems like the perfect playground to be showcasing your NFTs and potentially minting them, right? Because if you're creating your own custom digital assets, whether it's with your phone or with your computer or whatever, and then displaying them on there currently, this is a way of kind of showing like, hey, I own this particular one, and also quickly being able to mint it. So the minting process I wanted to talk about for a second because I've actually gone through this process and I
Mm-hmm.
am familiar with it. In the case that I went through it, it was actually quite expensive.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious how they handle that. Maybe using the Pax dollar and stablecoin, which is a stablecoin. I don't know what blockchain they'd be minting it on. I don't. Maybe they're creating their own, but looking up like a large scale print that I was going to upload as an NFT for testing purposes, um, it was like $60
Yeah.
for the gas fees. So that's a lot for an average user. I feel like in order to get kind of wide scale adoption of like putting these assets on a particular blockchain, they're going to have to reduce the cost of that, or they're going to have to cover a significant portion of the cost and make us feel like it's not that expensive, even though they're actually covering the back end. Thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people are anticipating kind of like the switch to proof of stake or proof of time and space. I'm moving away from proof of work in order to get kind of gas prices down, reducing the or dramatically reducing the impact on the environment. I think those are some of the things that just fundamentally have to happen for NFTs to have a chance. And I felt for a while now that NFTs have a lot more, at least near term or near and midterm potential than cryptocurrencies. Like I think there's a lot more application that is a little bit more unique and different rather than cryptocurrencies, which are almost entirely the same as normal currencies, just with some extra security features. But I think they're anticipating that the cost will go down, the environmental impact will alleviate. They're anticipating the next generation of blockchain in order to kind of smooth this out, because there are very very few people I think that are going to be interested or willing to pay those gas fees in order to mint something that's just going to be an Instagram post.
Correct. But I don't think it would be just an Instagram post. It would also be stored in your wallet. So, for example, if you're on Coinbase and you purchase something on OpenSea, you can have it transferred over to your Coinbase wallet, and then when you go into your
Mm-hmm.
wallet, you could see your crypto assets, but then you can also see the NFTs that you own. And so, I feel like there's a competition now for who's going to have the wallet where your stuff is going to be stored, although everyone seems to be trying to follow this kind of like open platform idea of if it's in my Novi wallet on Instagram or Facebook or Meta or whatever names we want to associate with that, when it comes out, that I would be able to transfer it out of that and into my Coinbase wallet or some other holding space out there. It's a little confusing, right? It's like I don't know how this
Yeah,
is all going to land.
I don't really see. I mean, I guess it's true. Some people are competing over wallets. I don't think wallets are going to be like something to compete over time. It's just going to be another. It's just going to be another commodity, right? Everybody's going to have their own wallet. There's nothing really unique or innovative or proprietary about a wallet. It's just here's a little storage thing that you have that's probably centralized storage on some centralized thing. I imagine that Meta will have their own for Meta related transactions and stuff. But I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean,
I
there's a
think
there's a
I think everybody and
movement
their
to.
mother's going to have a wallet, and it's just going to be okay. One wallet's the same as another wallet. The same thing. The same way we are with like cloud storage these days.
Well, essentially, that's what it is, right?
Yeah,
It's just cloud storage. I mean, why wouldn't the
yeah,
cloud storage masters of the universe out there, like AWS and who are some of the other real big ones, Oracle, whatever it is, just open up an NFT section and have everything stored in their like massive cloud storage area. I don't know how this stuff's going to play out, and then I heard the other day that hundreds of millions of dollars have been going into cold storage. So moving back
yeah,
to physical assets where, you would go out and you'd go buy this cold storage unit, which is essentially a hard drive that has like encryption built into it and all that. And then you can transfer everything onto your cold storage, and it has like a digital screen on it, and you have to put in
yeah,
certain codes to unlock it. And then you can put that in a safe.
yeah.
So now I'm
So
moving the asset off.
that makes sense from a kind of product marketing perspective, because basically what you can do is you can take 20-year old, or maybe not 20-year old, but like 10-year old technology where you have basically a hard drive with encryption and sell it as, oh, it's not an encrypted hard drive, it's cold storage. So you can sell it for a lot more with that kind of marketing behind it.
Well, I think that, are you saying marketing meaning the thoughts behind like the security issues? So like if I move it off of,
No, I'm just,
um,
I mean, just like taking a hard drive with encryption and labeling it as this new cold storage thing. And people are like,
oh,
oh, I bought cold storage. I'm like, you bought a hard drive with encryption. You bought an encrypted hard drive. It's not special.
yeah, I mean, essentially that's what it looks like to me, unless I don't fully understand like what they're doing. Maybe it's like super high level encryption, or it's done in a way that you know uh, is just different than what you and I are familiar with. But as far as I could tell, just from my research, that's what it sounds like. But what are your thoughts though on this idea of like, okay, let's say that you created. So your girlfriend is an artist as well as a chef. So she
Yes.
creates a piece of art, okay, that becomes digital art. Well, actually, it already kind of is digital art because she uploads them to Instagram and we see them, right? So let's say she mints that thing. Okay. What is her thinking process, do you think, from the idea of like, I'm going to store this minted quote unquote asset because it has a token associated with it on Instagram's wallet versus I have a hard drive at my house that is a cold storage wallet that I'm going to transfer it off onto there? Like, what would be the thinking behind that?
She wouldn't really. I don't see. Well, here's the thing, right? We still need to figure out the core use case behind it, because just ownership
Uh huh.
and resale value is ultimately not a use case, right? In order for these NFTs to hit, whether it's on
Okay.
Instagram or something else, and I'm anticipating this will happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
It needs to have value that is not just resale value, right? Like your car has value aside from resale value. It's not just sitting there until you sell it.
No, you can
So
drive it, right? Yeah.
yeah, you can do something with it. There is an experience of it. Like most of the things that we buy, very few things that we buy are just for resale value, and almost all of those things are things like stock or something like that that we're going to basically kind of ignore unless we're a day trader until it's time to sell it. So for
Yep.
NFTs, like the idea of a wallet, you can go into your wallet and see your NFTs. I'm like, from a cloud storage perspective, that's very low level cloud storage. It's like the easiest cloud storage you can possibly ever do, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You're just storing maybe a JPEG or other image file of whatever it is, and some like a token, right? Literally a couple lines of codes. Like it's tiny stuff, unless you're actually doing video and you're NFTing video, which
Okay.
for some stuff, if somebody's like creating like well produced shorts or feature length videos and stuff, then that is something that makes much more sense. Or if you're producing your own music, if you're an actually or if you're a semi-serious or a serious music producer, or if you're a photographer or something like that, then it might make more sense because you're in the business of establishing your IP and then selling your IP. But for a normal consumer, I keep trying to come back to, if NFTs can become mass market for the average consumer out there, then we need to unlock a use case, a that provides value of just owning and holding with no plans to resell. Because
Yeah.
once the NFTs become, everybody's minting NFTs, then the scarcity of an NFT in general, or an NFT backed asset, I should say, was just going to explode, which means that the price is going to come down, because even though there is one unique piece of art, there is now 50,000 unique pieces of art that are relatively similar. So if I don't want to pay X amount for that particular NFT, let's buy something similar from somebody else.
Yeah. Because I look at it and I go, okay, it always, everything that's new always seems to start as like assets, where it's like,
Mhm.
just like you said, like, oh, I have it. I'm the only one that has it, or it hasn't hit mass market yet. And then eventually you have all these assets, and then you have to do something with them. So you have to either love them and display them. Let's say it's basically like a baseball card, right? We liked baseball cards. We traded them with each other. There wasn't even a game associated with it as much. It's not like Pokemon where you're actually playing a game, right? So
Mhm.
then it became something that kind of sat around, but then that essentially crashed. That industry crashed after 20 years
Yeah.
because people kind of walked away from it. It was like, I can't really do anything with it. So they just sit basically in a box and I hope they're worth money later, right? And I think that with this stuff, I think what they're trying to do is less about that and more about just adhering to ownership rules of like uploaded this. Let's say he signs a terms and conditions that says, I agree that I was the one who created this for real, or bought it from someone who created it or whatever it is. And then now here's my token associated with it. There's only one copy of it that has the token associated with it, and I store it. And then if someone wants it, I can give it to them. But basically, it's just permanently stored. I agree with
Yeah.
you.
I
I don't
mean,
know what you do with it after that, other than just showcase it to other people, for fun or whatever, or lease it out. Maybe it's like someone wants to use it for a commercial or something. And you say, yeah, you can lease it out, and you put a temporary change of ownership on it for a period of time. They take it, they use it, and then eventually they lose ownership of it after a period of time.
well, there's an elephant in the room here, is that somebody who owns the NFT doesn't necessarily own the rights to that asset.
Correct. So that's
There's no
a
legal contract in place in transferring the ownership of the rights to them. They have a official copy, but they don't have the rights to monetize that asset in any other way.
No, I thought that was defined by the actual note. So like when you purchase an NFT from somebody, that's defined inside of the smart contract.
Well, it depends on the smart contract, right? Depends on how it's written up. But you can buy an NFT but not have the rights to commercialize it. Like
Correct. I've
you
seen that
need,
actually.
yeah, you have. That means you can have you can have it, you can look at it, you can own an official copy. It's kind of like if you own an official copy of a movie, right? You go out and you buy a DVD of a movie or a Blu-ray of a movie. Doesn't mean that you can set up your home theater and sell tickets to come watch that movie.
Yeah. What if I bought the master of it though? Then I technically own the master, which means now I own all the royalties associated with it. Correct?
If but that is a process above and beyond just an NFT,
Yeah.
right? That's a whole legal argument, and there's a contract that's involved, and all there's all of that stuff. And masters were being bought and sold well before NFTs existed, right? And NFTs might kind of creep into the contract space
Mm-hmm.
because,
No, it will. I think.
yeah, I mean, we deal with contracts all the time, and there's nothing. I mean, honestly, there's just it's the honor system of, all right, well, this contract that you signed, we promise not to go in with the Photoshop and change the terms after the fact, right?
Yep.
So having a contract NFT backed can help to prevent that because we will know that the copy that they've altered in Photoshop does not match the NFT token record. So we can say like, right, this is the actual version of the contract that was signed, and this is the actual language in that contract.
Yeah. What I'm actually getting from all this, and we'll kind of wrap this up, this section here, is that like this feels like still the exploratory phase of a new technology. So
Yes.
even though these companies are investing money, it's a very small fraction of their R&D budget.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they're testing and playing and exploring, and then they'll finally poke a hole somewhere where they go, oh, this is how this works really well within our company. Here's the use case
Mm-hmm.
associated with it, and then implement it and hope it grows.
Yeah, I think bottom line is that we have yet to see the experience grow up around these NFTs. And I think that when we get to the point where NFTs actually do, if they do, and I think
Uh,
they probably will, um, if they do cross the line into mainstream, it's probably less likely to be things like image files, like we're seeing from the Bored Ape Yacht Club and stuff like that, who has their value has dropped precipitously over the last few weeks, by the way. It's going to be things that are a little bit more difficult to create. It's
yeah.
not going to because the like static images like that, they're procedurally generated. It's generally speaking not an artist pumping them out. It's an algorithm who's creating them. It's going to be something that's a little bit more difficult to create, something a little bit more unique, maybe something 3D, maybe something video, maybe something that's actually like, a real, honest to goodness photographer out in the world taking amazing shots of Yosemite in the winter or something like that. And then there's going to be an entire experience built around owning them. Um, and we might see that happen within the metaverse so that the experience of owning that NFT or that NFT backed asset, I should say, is actually going to have value in itself.
I can tell you what's going to happen. People are going to start buying houses in the metaverse and then linking their crypto or their NFT wallets. And then as they walk into their house, like all the art on the walls is the NFTs that they've purchased. You're going to start seeing that stuff. And you're already seeing it a little bit.
Yeah.
I already saw it in Decentraland, but like you're going to start seeing it everywhere. People have like a whole second life and world and everything and all the things that they own. Cause the younger generation, they love owning digital assets. It's lightweight and carry it everywhere you go, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still struggle with this idea of spending money for virtual real estate when like it's ultimately free for them to generate once the
Yeah.
engine is created. So we'll see about that. Like especially the amount of money that they're charging for. I think one of the things we're also going to see is that the days when we move beyond just crypto enthusiasts buying things, and a lot of companies out there, especially game companies, are finding that you can't just take what worked for crypto enthusiasts and try to move that into other market demographics, market segments like gamers, for example, and expect to have the same results. It's working really well for crypto enthusiasts because they're crypto enthusiasts. So that taking that and trying to sell that to people who are not enthusiasts is just not going to work unless you reimagine the experience. And even then, you're going to see NFTs going for $5-10. You're not going to see NFTs going for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, exactly. This tends to happen over and over again with new technology as
Mm-hmm.
it comes out. Well, hey, let's make a transition because this is a perfect time to talk about daylight savings time. so, um, reported from Forbes. I like looking at Forbes when it comes to some of these things because they kind of get right down to the meat of it. But on Tuesday, the U.S. Senate voted unanimously to make daylight savings time permanent starting in 2023, getting rid of the biannual rituals that Americans have of changing their clocks back and forth an hour. The House still needs to pass this thing, which is called the Sunshine Protection Act. But if it succeeds, the time Americans live on during the summer, which is basically 4 hours behind GMT time, would now become standard across the US year round. So basically, the idea is keeping daylight savings time as the permanent time in the United States. Now, I just wanted to discuss a couple definitions here and then we can chat about it, right? So, standard time, you'll hear people talk about this a lot, is the local time in a country or region when daylight savings time is not in use. Okay, so daylight savings time is when we set clocks forward 1 hour in the spring, which makes darkness fall later at night. And then we tend to roll, not tend to, we roll those clocks back by 1 hour in fall to make it darker earlier in the evening. And this stuff was originally established in order to reduce energy consumption by extending the amount of time in the day that we have light. But there's some issues with this, and I want to get your thoughts on it before I discuss those.
So, well, number one, I have to respond to the naming the Sunshine Protection Act. Like Congress always has to like give themselves grandiose names for this thing. You're not protecting sunshine. Sunshine's going to be fine no matter what legislation you pass.
Yeah.
Sunshine will always be there. You're ending daylight saving times. Just call it that. Like it's ridiculous. Anyway, the other thing that
Well,
kind
you're
of
not
bums me
ending
out
daylight
is that
savings time, D. You're not ending daylight savings time. You're actually
oh, you're
keeping daylight
extending it.
savings. Yeah,
Right.
you're
Well,
extending it forever.
you're protecting the negative effects that happen to human beings when things get shifted around like this, which is real and has actual health detriments. But the other thing that bums me out is that 2023. Why are we waiting? Just do it. Just
Well,
do it this year.
the reason why they're saying 2020. Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, yeah, yeah. I was
Just
thinking,
get
oh,
it
that
done.
just means that
Just
they're
get it
just going to
done.
pass it. Yeah, let's just get it done. Like, why do we have to roll the clocks back and
Yeah.
then roll them forward again and then start it? Maybe they want to give everyone a chance to like adjust to it. I have no idea.
Like adjust to what? You're reducing the amount of adjustment that we have to do in fall and spring of next year. You've got like months and months to just be like, hey, you don't have to fall back in November.
The weird thing about this whole thing, we've all complained about this forever. Like, why are we changing clocks and stuff? Like, it's a very interesting concept. That it's an old concept, but the weird thing is that like Forbes had reported that in 2008 a study was done that found that moving clocks forward actually increased electricity consumption because people
Mm-hmm.
started using their appliances like air conditioning more because they would
Yeah,
extend it later in the evening, right? They wouldn't like turn it
yeah,
off and it would get cooler outside, that kind of stuff.
because they're all on
Um,
timers, right? And the timers are changing.
Exactly, right? So you have to go and change everything, which that's the annoying part. And actually, there was a study I read that said that 7 out of 10 Americans were super frustrated with having to change all their clocks twice a year, which makes sense, right? You're just like got to walk around your
Right. And
house
like
and
how many people end up late for meetings or like, you have to change your sleep schedule, which is unhealthy.
oh,
Like
I was tired
this
all week. I was tired all week. I was
yeah.
just like, man, like I'm just tired, and it's like it always happens every time we do this.
Yeah.
Um,
And then when you're in the winter now because your clocks have been set back, then now it's getting dark at 4 and 5 o'clock. So there's all these things. From what I understood, and this might be an urban legend, but like it was established in order to give farmers different. I hate this idea that it gives you more daylight. It doesn't. It's the same
no,
amount of daylight. It's just how that daylight falls relative to our arbitrary human clock.
yeah.
It's for whatever reason, it makes no logical sense at all. I don't know why it even happened. So it's just if you're kind of like you're screwing over everybody else for one segment who somehow benefits them, that they don't have to adjust their clocks in order to, or their processes in order to adjust the changing light levels.
Yeah, so that thing you were about to say about the farmers is an urban legend. It was originally designed for energy consumption. It didn't have anything to do with the farmers. People started saying, well, farmers can work later in the evening. Yeah, but also it's darker in the morning. And also they get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and most of them are pretty burned out by the time 5, 6 o'clock comes around. I don't think they're really working until 7, right? It's just it doesn't really like add up. Maybe it helped some of them, but what I read is it
So
doesn't.
so
What
you looked this up. When was it employed? When did it
that,
start?
I don't remember the exact date. I can look it up though. Um,
Was well, roughly, was it like when we were still using gas lamps, or was it when we were converting to electricity? Like, I understand that they need to maybe convert whale oil, or save oil for using gas lamps and stuff, so people
it was
can.
during World War One,
Hmm,
because they wanted to save energy during World War One, but it became national standard in the '60s.
interesting. Yeah, I don't. I mean, it didn't seem. It seems as though we probably had much lesser energy needs back then. Maybe we had also lesser energy production at the time. So who knows?
Yeah, well, one of the two things I want to talk to you about, one is that research studies have shown, and you mentioned this already a little bit, that changing the clocks increases workplace accidents,
Hmm.
health issues like heart attacks, and driving accidents as well. Because people go to work and they're tired and they're groggy and they're driving a forklift, or you're driving your car to work in the morning. You're not paying attention. You're making people get up earlier that are older, and you see an increase in heart attacks. And this is not just a correlation like done with one study. They've been looking at this for like 30 years
Yeah.
and have seen these problems. Also, studies have shown that permanent daylight saving time in particular has its issues because it doesn't align perfectly with the natural day, as well as standard time was. It's probably better to keep it on standard time because what it does is it creates sleep issues for a lot of people. Not everybody. Some people could just like lay down and go to sleep, in a dark room, but other people, when you change the time like that, they have issues sleeping. And then when you constantly shift your sleep schedules, they see an increase in cancer and heart related issues. So it is a problem. We have to pick a standard. We have to adhere to it and then just move on from it. Like essentially, that's the way I see it. But researchers, they go back and forth. Some of them say that just pick one and go with it, and then some of them that are heavy into the sleep research in particular say that standard time is better than daylight savings time. So here
So
we are.
I'm curious as far as like, I'm not sure what it means that it aligns with the natural day.
If you look at the time of day versus where the sun is and when it goes down, and like melatonin levels and all that kind of stuff. So sleep researchers look at how human beings respond to just the environment minus time, and standard time in particular seems to align a little bit better than the daylight savings time that they want to link it to right now and keep it at.
Is that people, because people are like aligning their sleep schedule to a clock rather than to the actual environment, so that they're trying to go to
Correct.
sleep at 9 o'clock and it's still light out?
Correct.
Well, I mean, that's as you know, a behavioral scientist, someone who is focused on what humans do.
Uh-huh.
You would just redefine what 9 p.m. means to people.
Correct. But that happens
That would
over
just
time.
naturally happen over time, but that would happen regardless of which standard you pick.
Yeah, so over time, everyone will just align and they'll probably see a decrease in these issues that they're talking about. So we
Yeah,
have to pick one and we have to move with it and stop this constant changing back and forth because we just don't need
yeah,
it anymore, right? And so
yeah.
I think I think it's a good thing. I don't know, to be honest with you, like every single detail about why we would do one over the other and whether we should make small adjustments and stuff. But I do know just anecdotally for myself that like every time this happens, I feel kind of burned out for about a week or two.
Yeah, it's terrible, and it needs to stop. We know about all of these health detriments from studying people who do shift work, like people who do
Yes.
graveyard. And I did this in college, right? I worked graveyard doing security for a while. people who are grave, and if they switch to a swing shift or to a day shift, it's terrible for them behaviorally. Like the experience is terrible, their health is really bad. And people who work grave, who on their off days try to have like a normal schedule so they can interact with people or go and do things during the day, like get their car fixed or something,
Mm-hmm.
or go to the bank, then it's also just terrible for them. Like their long term health detriments are nasty.
Yeah, they say the healthiest thing you can do, and it's like literally like over and over again from, and we used to know sleep researchers, so I used to have these long detailed conversations with them. I thought it was fascinating. The
Mm-hmm.
healthiest thing you can do is go to bed at the same time every night, wake up at the same time every day, don't shift it a ton, and sleep in a room that's completely dark. That's like the
Yeah,
thing. So it's like if you love, like, me, I always fall asleep by 11 o'clock no matter what. So like you go to bed at 11, you get up at I get up at 6, but like go to bed at 11, you get up at 6, and your room is pitch dark. That's and hopefully over time you'll just sleep well and be very consistent.
yeah.
Human body just responds well to that.
Well,
The
I've
consistency.
always believed, and I had a lot of the conversations with it was the fatigue countermeasures at NASA.
Yeah, I loved
We
it. I
talked
loved all
about it
that
quite a
stuff.
bit, and I was a little bit of an oddity because I don't need a lot of sleep. I can get
Yeah.
by just fine on I still get maybe like 5 or 6 hours of sleep each night. But for me, it's always been number one, have really good sleep hygiene. So the sleep that you get is really good quality sleep.
Yep.
You go to sleep when you're tired and wake up when you're rested. And
Naturally, right?
yes, like
Yes.
an alarm clock, getting up to an alarm clock, no matter what time it's set, it just kind of wrecks me for a few hours in the morning. So
Well, it's not
to
good for you.
me,
They figured that too.
yeah,
They figured that just
yeah,
what's actually really good for you is if your body wakes up naturally, but also wakes up naturally from the glow of your windows, like the light coming into your
hmm,
windows and things like that. It's like when you go on, when you go on vacation to Hawaii and you don't have an alarm clock set, and suddenly you just kind of go "Ugh," and you stretch and you could see the warm sun coming up, and you're like, "Why do I
yeah.
feel so great?"
Well, I think that's something with the work from home kind of development that we've had, and it's been accelerated with the pandemic. It's a lot more like it's not about watching some clock that you're punching. And obviously, this is different if you're a shift worker or something. But a lot more people are able to do this. They just get as long as you get your work done. Who cares what hour of the day that you're doing it?
Yeah, I agree, and that's actually proven to be very true and effective. And hey, I forgot to tell you something when we first started this podcast. Happy St. Patrick's Day, man! This
Oh,
is
happy
actually
St.
being
Patrick's
recorded
Day.
on St. Patrick's Day, and I am wearing green today, just so you know.
Yep, and I'm already planning to cook a whole bunch of Irish meals tonight. Dinner. Gonna make some colcannon, maybe some salmon with some Irish whiskey. Uh,
Nice,
no corned beef and cabbage because that is not an Irish dish. That is apparently a British dish, which some friends of mine from Ireland have pointed out to me.
interesting. I did not know that. That's a good
Yeah.
fact. We had ours last night and celebrated it just because my mother in law was in town, so we decided to do it then. But yeah, I always love having a little bit of Guinness and stuff, and
Oh yeah.
enjoying the evening that way. But hey, let's get on actually to our last topics of the day, because I'm really interested in it. So you had sent this over to me. I have never played this game before, but I watched a ton of YouTube videos on it after you sent it to me. It's Elden Ring, and
Yes.
what was really interesting, and I find this so fascinating because gaming has gotten so big that like I don't think you can not talk about gaming.
Hmm.
I mean, we could probably talk about gaming in every podcast if we really wanted to, but Elden Ring sold over 12 million copies in 18 days. That's insane, D.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
So one of the things that's really interesting is that most really high end like game releases, the ones that sell the most, tend to be kind of Q4, maybe Q3, around September, October, November, like right when you're ramping up for Christmas. So those are usually where the biggest game releases happen. And it's also tends to be very mainstream games. Elden Ring is not a mainstream game. So this is coming from a company called From Software. They're known for making Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro. They are very, very, very difficult games. They're very like if you remember what it was like to play Mega Man and Ghouls and Ghosts back in the 80s and 90s, it's kind of like that, but in a modern capabilities for gaming. And these are basically horror games. They're like you're fighting these like distorted, crazy monsters and stuff. So this is a this is a very difficult, extremely difficult horror game released in February that has nearly made $1 billion in sales in just over 2 weeks. That's blown everybody away. I believe that they said that the sales projections were like 4 million copies, and it's
Wow.
tripled it.
So tell me though, like, why do you think people love this game so much?
Well, you get into the game and I haven't played this game because partially because I'm waiting to buy a PlayStation 5 and I refuse to play to pay dramatically over MSRP.
Oh
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
waiting for a PS5 to be available anywhere within $100 of MSRP, and then I'll probably buy one. And I don't really want to invest in like games for older generations. And this definitely feels to me like a console game. This doesn't really feel as much like a PC game to me.
Hmm.
So it's you get into it, and just as you saw from the videos that you watched, just the craftsmanship that goes into creating this game, the visuals, the physics, the gameplay. This is Demon Souls. It's a Soulsborne game, so it's Soulsborne, Demon Souls, and Dark Souls plus Bloodborne. So that's the name that they use now for that genre of game. Is It's the first open world that From Software has created, and should mention that George R. R. Martin contributed some of the storyline stuff and
That's
the
big.
lore for the world, which is
Yeah.
big, right? Yeah. So it is a new type of this kind of game, and people have reported that because of that, because it is open world, you can choose your encounters a little bit more, where the other game's much more linear. So you can, if something's too difficult for you, you can go off and do something else, or you can be more strategic on how you approach that fight. You can use the terrain a little bit differently. You can get help in different ways. There's a lot of different, more flexibility built into it. So I think it's something that because of that, it's attracting a wider audience because people are able to tackle the difficulty of the game in more strategic ways rather than just like get very good at the your Twitch arcade game skills
Hmm.
and best this monster at its own game.
Yeah.
There's this to me. I look at this and this is a signal post for the gaming industry being able to open up to supporting a different kind of game at a high level.
Well, yeah, it was funny. One of the comments that we were laughing about was it said, for they call this a niche game or a niche area. And
Yeah.
one of the commenters on there said, how niche can it be when you sell 12 million copies in 18 days? But I think it could be because a lot of these quote unquote niche markets, where you're having like these horror games and things like that. Yeah, it's not something that a 6-year-old's going to play. It's not something that a super maybe elderly person would play. I have no idea, but like you're hitting a certain segment, and you're
Hmm.
capturing a large big chunk of that segment. I think I read online that 1 million copies of these were sold in Japan alone within the first week.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. I think that
And
I think that's more than Xboxes they've sold in Japan.
I know, right? So it's like it's hitting a nerve. It's exciting people, and I actually used one of your analogies when my son was telling me that like one of the games that he was interested in was a little expensive because it was $59, and I said, Uncle D always says, yeah, it costs you $59 to buy a game that you'll play for months and months and months, possibly over and over and over again, but it cost you on average, was it $15 to $20 a person to go see a movie at the movie theater that
Hmm.
you'll see once. So the three
Yeah.
of you go to the movies and it costs $60, or you spend $60 on the game and you have months and months and months of entertainment. It's not that expensive. Like
Yeah.
when you
And
break
people
it
are
down.
saying that they'll do a playthrough in Elden Ring that's like 80 hours.
Right. There you go. Right.
And
And it,
and
it
they're
costs two
heavily
hours.
motivated to go back and do another because it's with the open world. There's so much stuff to do. There's so much value packed into this $60 purchase.
So when they say open world, like just so everybody understands, what do they actually mean by that?
Mhm. Well, open world, that's in contrast to older games. Like you think about, what's an example of a game that you might remember from when we were young? Well, like Mega Man or a
Oh,
side
okay.
scroller, right?
Yep.
So the old side scrollers were you're what they call kind of on rails. It's a linear game. You go from point A to point B. You fight the boss at that point B, and then you move on. So you have those kinds of games, which might be like an Uncharted, right? The movie just came out for it. I haven't seen it
Yep.
yet. That the reviews were terrible, but like I might go see it in the theater just for the action scenes, and hopefully they're as good as the game. Um, then you have something in between that, which is called they call it a Metroidvania. So if you ever played Super Metroid or Castlevania Symphony of the Night, where you
Yep.
have kind of branching paths within an environment, so it's a step up from like a traditional side scroller, but you can explore within like these branching paths and stuff and things reconnect. That's kind of what the games from this developer, the Soulsborne genre, that's what it has been up till now. And then you have kind of open worlds. That's kind of like the old Legend of Zelda games, right? Where you can go in any direction at any time. You can just explore this open world. And famously, I think Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has been one of the biggest ones where you can go anywhere, do anything, but it's become a little bit of like almost an overused genre these days because you have all of the Assassin's Creed's games, you have like Far Cry, you have all kinds of open world games, and we're seeing some games like this, which are kind of starting to refine the formula a bit. Because one of the things that happens with those is like there's lots of signposting, and you go to the map, and there's like lots of like here, there's something to do here, and there's something to do here.
Yeah.
And this one is doing it, getting your attention and getting you to those things in a much more organic way, where it doesn't feel like it's breaking the immersion quite as much.
I see. Okay. So in these particular environments, then you can kind of have endless experiences.
Well, it's probably not endless, just because of the limitations in development. I mean, it's theoretically endless, right? Kind of like
Yeah.
Minecraft. It's a great example of like an open world game, and that one's like a full blown sandbox where you can do just about anything.
See,
But
that feels
in
endless to me because it's like you could just wake up one
mhm,
day and decide you're going to make a massive chicken farm that is, looks like a
yeah,
panda, and it's like boom, you can just do it.
yeah. Well, Minecraft, if you go into a standard Minecraft world, I believe it is endless, and it's just procedurally generated and goes off forever.
Yeah.
So within a game like Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild or Red Dead Redemption, it is kind of you're bounded to an extent. So you can go off for miles and miles and miles in one direction. Eventually, you're going to come to some mountain that you can't climb, and then that's because they haven't developed anything beyond that.
Hmm.
But you can see expansion packs that extend it, and over time, we've seen those worlds grow and grow and grow. Like you can, if you were playing like Shadow of Mordor, which is a great
Uh-huh.
game, you can get across the entire world relatively quickly, just by running or anything like that. I believe for Elden Ring, it's like much more massive. It's just an expansive piece of land.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is super cool, and it kind of begs the question of like, you know, it's kind of trumping Hollywood in many
Oh yeah,
ways, like, when you look at numbers, and it's like people seem to be heading more and more in the direction of, like, wanting to game rather than wanting to consume, media in the same way that they used to a long time ago, and as we talk about the metaverse, and we talk about these things, I kinda feel like the next couple of years, you're probably gonna see a lot of big companies either heavily getting into gaming or buying these massive gaming companies, right? So, like, you look at Meta, for example, right? They're getting into NFTs and they have this and they have that and they have this VR headset. I can see them coming in and trying to swoop in and buy some of these big companies, billions and billions of dollars in order to capture that large audience and then weave them into that metaverse experience. Do you see
well they
something
kind
like that happening?
yeah, they kind of have. They've been trying to for a while. And they were focused on kind of like these browser based or mobile games for back in the Zynga days and stuff. I don't think, and they bought Oculus, right, which was essentially a gaming company, and now they're trying to rebrand it as like it's not gaming. They're putting out uh, commercials that I saw where they're almost denigrating gamers. Like the only thing you can do in VR is game. Like, oh, you can do this, and I'm like, well, that's interactive. It's essentially a game. It's a gaming
Yeah.
experience. But they're trying to almost like say, oh, it's not just for gamers. Yeah, you're providing. Don't denigrate the gamers. It's ultimately the best experience you can have right now is when VR is gaming until they can get some kind of live events experience set up, so you can go like experience the Oscars from sitting there in the crowd or something like that.
Which would be super awesome. I would try that.
Yeah,
That'd be really interesting to sit there and be looking up on the stage and watching, the comedian or
yeah.
whatever host.
I will. I've said it before. I'm going to say it probably for again for a very long time until they can prove me wrong. I don't think Facebook as a company culture gets gaming. They're kind of like Apple. They don't get gaming. They. I don't think a lot of their employees, or at least well, ultimately it's their leadership, right? I don't think their leadership is gamers.
Yeah.
And because their leadership isn't composed of gamers, they can't make the decisions that are going to serve gamers effectively. And you can try to get somebody in at a lower level, but when push comes to shove, and vice president of product overseeing the gaming division says one thing, and then Zuckerberg or somebody above him says, that doesn't sound right, even though I know nothing about gaming and I'm going to override you. And that's just kind of what happens. It's one of the reasons
Yeah.
why you can't just throw money at a problem and or at an industry and develop something for it. You have to understand it as a company. Like
Yeah.
said before, culture is destiny within these companies.
Absolutely, especially these gaming companies. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
if you took one of these big tech companies that's not into gaming and just out of the blue said create a game, right? I just don't, and you're putting them up against some of these companies that have created these games that are selling 12 million copies in 18 days. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
they would struggle for a long period of time until they really shifted their culture in order to focus on storytelling and gaming and things like that. So
Yeah,
ultimately, this is exciting news. I think it's big news. It shows that this market is still growing and expanding, and I feel like there's going to be a lot,
yeah.
coming ahead of
There's
us.
a couple of quick takeaways I want to wrap up
Yeah,
with
yeah,
this. What I see from this is either one of two things, or maybe a combination of the two. Either the kind of Soulsborne, brutally hard kind of horror or pseudo horror kind of game is going a bit more mainstream, or a niche AAA title in gaming is 12 million copies sold. Maybe the market is so big that 12 million is niche.
I said, yeah, it's super, super amazing. And that is one of the reasons why I kind of feel like I want to try this game out, right? I want to see what this experience is like that got 12 million people to make a purchase in 18 days. It's not like 12 million over 2 years. This is 12
Yeah.
million in 18 days. Imagine over the course of a year how many copies will be sold.
Yeah, and this isn't even an environment in which they're releasing. They have no competition. We had Horizon Forbidden West. It's another amazing game just released like a few weeks before that.
Uh-huh. I've actually heard of people like taking the day off work just to relax and just play a video game all day long.
Oh
Like they're
yeah,
like, I took a day off. I ordered a pizza. I started the game. I really got into the experience. Spent the whole day doing it. It was it's interesting to hear like people love it so much that they're willing to dedicate a lot of their free time.
at one point it was illegal in Japan to release a Final Fantasy game during a workday.
I could see that for sure.
Yeah,
But hey, this is great, Dee. Thanks for sharing that. And I think this is a wrap for today. I wanted to wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us. We will be posting links to many of the sources that we referenced on Twitter. So you can find us and follow us at Twitter, the X Podcast One. That's the X Podcast and number one. If you like this podcast, found it interesting or informative, helps us a great deal if you subscribe or leave a review on whatever platform you use. Thanks, everyone, and we will see you all next week.